What's up, Bulldogs? Back with another fantastic episode of TV Judge. First one of the new year. Got some seniors on the way out, but we have a banger to start off the year right for you, Bulldogs. And let's get into our first segment.
High school basketball has changed a lot over the last couple of years, especially in Utah. To start to understand these changes and where basketball in Utah could be going in the future, we talked with two former Judge basketball players to get their take on how basketball has changed and the future of high school basketball in Utah. First, we talked with Jimmy Soto, who was a former player at Judge Memorial and played and announced at the University of Utah.
You know, when I was growing up, I'm an old guy, obviously, and you basically grew up playing with the kids in your neighborhood and the kids that you went to school with and you were going to go to school with as you got a little bit older each year. And the only time you didn't play with those kids is if they moved away or if you moved away. And so I think now, if the way that high school basketball is structured, there's kids that are playing a bunch of different travel teams and that sort of thing, and so they don't necessarily grow up and continue to play together as they move into high school. Kids are playing on these travel teams and they're not playing together in their neighborhoods. And when I was playing, coaches were coming to high schools and watching kids play and that sort of thing. At least in this area, it might have been different outside of Utah, but now you have these travel teams and you have tournaments that you go to where coaches are recruiting and following the kids all over the country. And my first experience actually leaving the state of Utah wasn't until my junior year when I came to Judge Memorial and we went to play at a tournament in Lake Tahoe. So kids are traveling and going out of state from grade school on now, and so it's a lot different. Kids don't have the opportunity to just play on the playground unsupervised, unstructured, and learn how to play the basketball game on the playground and pick up some of those skills that just become a habit or intuition. And then kids moving in and out of districts now and teams changing, and it's not just high school, it's across the board.
We also talked with Highland's current head basketball coach, Chris Jones, who led his team to the state championship game last year.
Well, I just grew up playing basketball. I grew up playing all the sports, but then when I got to high school, basketball kind of seemed like the one I liked the most. And I played at Judge, and then I got to play in college at the University of Portland and the University of Utah. And when I was in college, I decided that I wanted to try coaching and give coaching a chance. And I got the opportunity to coach in college right away when I was done playing, and coached in college for 20 plus years at Utah State, Westminster College, and then took over the Highland High School basketball program 5 years ago, and here we are. Well, the last 10 years, it's been all about, kids have private coaches and private one-on-one coaches and skill development coaches and shooting coaches and all that. Whereas, back when I was playing or, prior to the last 10 years or so, you didn't have that stuff. You just played. You just got in the gym, you got some guys, and you just played 5-on-5, 4-on-4, 3-on-3, whatever it was. And you just learned how to play basketball. And you fixed your shot. You learned how to shoot on your own and maybe with your coach's help a little bit, but you didn't have all the private coaching and all the stuff that kids have nowadays. And so I think that's something that's really changed the last, 7 to 10 years is the evolution of private coaching and outside of, the team that you play for, the coach and team that you play for. The transfer portal is starting to trickle down to high schools now where, if a kid as a freshman or a sophomore isn't getting varsity time, he's going to go look for somewhere else to go. Whereas I think 10, 15, 20 years ago, a freshman was just happy to be on the freshman team. A sophomore was pretty happy to be on the sophomore team, and if they were on the varsity team, they were ecstatic and they were loving life. And then as a junior, you were hoping just to get to play varsity, and then as a senior, you were hoping to start. But now I think, people want instant gratification, and if they're not playing varsity as a freshman or a sophomore, a lot of them are going to go look for a different place.
Wow, what a wonderful segment. We got some great Bulldogs. Let's see what the next one's talking about.
Nearly 70% of teenage girls say fear of being judged stops them from exercising. This fear can lead to lower confidence, less participation in sports, and even long-term impacts on overall health. However, Judge Memorial, a school located in Salt Lake City, Utah, is working to change this through a women's-only fitness program taught by Carla Keller.
I just felt like there are times when women are self-conscious about performing in front of men, and I felt that young women at the ages of 14, 15, 16, 17 would feel better about developing that fitness base if they were doing that in a single-gendered class.
According to the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, boys are more likely than girls to reach daily activity goals. Many girls say that social pressures, concerns about safety, and body image issues keep them from staying active. Experts say that if these patterns are not addressed early, they could contribute to long-term health problems between males and females.
We all did take PE with the boys, and it was like typical, like you see in the movies and on TV, where you just hate it and it just sucks and every day is rough. And then when I signed up for the class as a senior, the female only, it was great. And I think at that age, like, you're just kind of learning that there's so many different things that you can do to create, like, I don't want to say fitness journey, but, different things to get yourself in shape, to center your mind. So even back then in the 90s, when maybe we didn't know about as many different aspects of physical fitness, she was able to show us all sorts of different cool things that we could try to just kind of do like a whole body kind of an effect.
According to a study done by Emma Cowley, a leading researcher in women's health, she found that many girls feel uncomfortable when attending PE classes due to wanting to look good, and found that participants who are friends or are alike to them were more likely to succeed in fitness due to not feeling judged by appearance or physical ability.
It was harder to be myself, really, because all of the boys, it was just harder with the boys there. I feel like they mostly took charge, and like everybody really listened to them and like wanted to hang out with them, and then all the girls kind of sat on the side. But in my women's wellness, we all like are equally important.
With the right support, girls can overcome fear, embrace fitness, and shape their own health and confidence for life.
Wrapping it up, time for our final segment.
Half of American adults admit to betting on a sporting event. And
illegal betting operations remain one of the biggest issues for Tennessee's Sports Wagering Council.
Gamble an estimated $3 billion.
But experts say those wagers can quickly get out of hand and tip over into addiction.
Officials are sounding the alarm on the rise of sports gambling, pointing to an increase in advertisements for betting. They say cases of gambling-related harms are trending upwards.
My name is Buddy, and I'm a senior at Judge Memorial.
Okay, my name is John Barron. I'm better known as Mr. Barron. I am a theology teacher here at Judge in my 6th year.
I think the main thing that's contributing to the rise of sports betting with younger people is the amount of stuff they see on TV about it. Like every sports broadcast has ads for it on screen. ESPN in the mornings has a ticker on the bottom of the screen advertising ESPN Bet. It's just a lot on TV.
I think one of the main factors contributing to the rise of sports betting among young people today is just how visible and prevalent a lot of it is. There's a significant amount of advertising money that is going into basically every sporting experience one can find. This is in social media spaces. This is in spaces such as even watching games. You can't really get through a quarter without some sort of prop bet thing that pops up somewhere.
I think it normalizes it heavily. Like they see everyone talking about it so casually for so much of the time that games are happening that they just think it's normal. I think when it's just for fans of the team, that if they're not betting and just fans, they're like a bit annoyed at all the sports gambling stuff they see, but like they're fine. But it causes like extreme emotions from people who are invested heavily in what happens, especially because for some people they're betting a lot of money.
A lot of people will follow players as opposed to following teams, and one of the things that happens is that's led directly to the rise of, it's actually hard to say whether it's a cause or an effect of the rise of fantasy sports, where suddenly you have teams, you have players now whose statistics you're following in order to earn points for something. Now, traditionally, fantasy sports was something that was not done online, but rather was something that was done in person with groups of friends, and there was probably some level of gambling involved in this, but certainly not something that was more publicly known and publicly seen and publicly regulated for that matter.
I think that they should heavily lean on the fact that it is not like a surefire way to make money when they're talking about gambling, and it's a great way to do it safely. And also every broadcast before games makes their own parlays, and that's just and they don't really say anything, they're all just laughing about it, which is not a good way to advertise it to kids.
Until very recently, these leagues wanted nothing to do with betting at all. They didn't put any teams in Las Vegas. They were very careful about the things that their players were doing, the things that they were promoting. And then all of a sudden that changed. And as always when it comes to these sorts of things, you have to follow the dollars on this sort of thing. It became very profitable for these leagues to get into business with these companies because they were going to be able to make a significant cut of money from them. So now you have a whole other set of issues that did not exist before. Now, I think it's a very interesting question to think about whether this is a net positive or a net negative. I think we have to acknowledge what these positives are first and foremost. For a lot of people, it becomes much more difficult nowadays to be in person having the opportunity to share a game together. The cost of attending sporting events has skyrocketed. The cost of the amount of money people are making, especially young people, when it comes to a disposable income that can be used on going to sports games, and especially going with multiple people and hanging out with their friends. These things are much less accessible than they have been in the past. And so in a lot of ways, having an opportunity to connect in a digital virtual space with these sorts of things with people who may be thousands of miles away, there is a level of benefit to that. It's no different than texting your friends and say, hey, what are the lines for this Sunday's games? Let's have a little fun here and have a conversation about this sort of thing and see what happens. And there is a lot of entertainment value in that doesn't necessarily require you spending a lot of money. However, the further and further this goes, the further and further we become digitalized and virtualized in so many different ways, the more in order to have that kind of rush of companionship, of fun, of thrill, the more money has to be involved in this sort of thing. I don't think that is a net positive for society, let alone for sports.
That's a wrap. I've been Will Trentman, your host for this week's TV Judge, and we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.